colleague and me with our names just after a few slides. I will start just to cheer you to be here. I hope you really feel warmly welcome to this house. As you probably know, this used to be the School of Architecture at KTH until a couple of years ago, where we transformed it into an innovation hub with focus on fashion, food, media, and music. We will not talk about this house, but we will have the aim to give you some perspectives on a real estate company, how we could deal with all the knowledge and how all these new ideas that you have on light could infect on our daily business. Where do we have this one? But first of all, a few questions that we want to put into your minds. Where do you think best? Where do you solve problems? This is questions that we deal with every day with our facilities. We have quite high ambitions in our vision. Our vision is that we, together with universities and colleges, we want to make Sweden an even stronger knowledge nation. And that's something we do by working with buildings, development, managing environments, and so on. So who are we? We are a state-owned company, and we are Anna Martin, Chief of Architecture, Erik Westin. We are representatives of what is called Akademiska hus, and this is some of our facilities. And just in a few figures, we are quite a big property company. As I told you, solely state-owned, focused on universities and colleges. And we have a big percentage of that market and a big property value, and we have a lot of projects going on all the time. So what you are discussing here about daylight has great importance for us. When we think about these issues, it goes very much under what we I have this. You can look at our work in two perspectives. We have one perspective that you could call a sort of macro perspective. We work with campus areas, big areas with a lot of building, with a lot of people engaged, where we aim to make campus for all needs. The other perspective is sort of a micro perspective, is in where we are now. We are in a building. We're looking upon how we can work and how we could make our research even better within that building. And we have the impact we have. It's a lot of people that we are in contact with. We have at about 300,000 people that study, research, and work in our facilities every day. So if we could have any impact with our strong vision, it's these people that we have to work with. I think personally that this has a lot to do with sustainability. And sustainability is something that is very much implemented in our corporate governance. We work with Agenda 2030 and the global goals, of course, and we work a lot of what we can have an impact within those goals. And it's, of course, it's a lot about energy consumption, it's a lot about carbon footprint, but it's also a lot of other things where we put initiatives together with customers and contracts and so on. And we work, of course, with the things that is countable, with the certificates and with certificating organizations that could help us to see whether we are achieving those goals. With all this said, with all these ambitions, I would hand over to my colleague Anna, and with the question, what are the pains for a chief architect to fulfill these goals, and with all these people with this impact with all these 300,000 people at a daily basis?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you.
Högra.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept of windows and the challenges that we face when we're planning and designing for health and well-being. So places where people want to stay and where they feel good, that's always a good deal. And daylight and contact with the outer world is a necessary ingredient to create those places within our buildings. Windows, of course, supply us with the necessary daylight, but they also provide other things like views and connection to greenery and the outside. And it creates transparency and also an experience of the daylight cycle. Too much windows, on the other hand, can create problems with heat and sun glare and all of this that you know, you're the experts. And research shows a correlation between stress and certain outdoor qualities. And at Akademiska Hus, we're currently involved in a research project that's being conducted by SLU, the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. And we're working together with several other property owners, where we're analyzing the outdoor qualities in our properties. And the project's called Restorative Workplaces. And in this project, we're analyzing and seeing if we can improve the environmental aspects in our buildings and how they affect our workplaces. So the research is based on different zones, which you see here to the left. In the middle, you have the inside, and how that connects to these outdoor qualities. And then zone 2 is the transitional space in the connection to the next space, the next zone, which is, of course, the garden or the park. And the outer zone is the surrounding environment. And the research is also taking into consideration different types of characteristics in the outdoor areas that are shown to provide us with restorative qualities. And these restorative qualities stem from a theory of well-being as a whole. So you see different types of qualities, and then the distance to the qualities imply a value of health-improving aspects then. Whoop. But back to the window, because the window is the connection. It provides us with this contact with these outdoor areas. And when we plan and design, we're so concerned with quantity and not quality. And as an example, as probably a lot of you know, the Swedish building regulation, when it comes to daylight factor, is based on percentage of daylight in regards of the depth of the room. So designing windows becomes a purely mathematical calculation, where sort of the depth of the room in correlation to the size of the windows determine the architecture. And there's also the energy efficiency issue, because at Akademiska Hus we have now set the standards for U value as a total on our building skins to 0.3, which is higher than like the standard if you look at it today around the world. And we're doing that, of course, because we see that we're part of a big climate challenge. And the conflict that occurs is, of course, that the windows, they pull down the U value. So we have to find the exact right size of the windows. But we also have to get the right amount of daylight. So this conflict always occurs. And as I said, it's a purely mathematical calculation, not concerning quality. And we are not allowed to involve the artificial light in these daylight calculations yet. So that's a question that I'm addressing to this crowd. So as an example, of course, conflict solving, you see the correlation between the depth of the room, the amount of daylight factor. This is from the same project where we do diagrams to see how big is the window in correlation to how big rooms can we have on the inside, and where does this correlation mean that we no longer fulfill the requirements of U value or daylight. And this is another project where we're looking at the performance of the facades bit by bit. And neither here are we concerned with the qualities or the experiences from inside. I mean, we are, but in the calculations to fulfill requirements, we're not. So heading forward, we see a need, of course, to combine different types of research, and here we're addressing you. We're very interested in what the combination of neuroscience, psychology, and glass research can do for our light in our buildings. And of course, what modern lighting technology can do in relation to natural daylight. Erik.
Thank you. So, we know quite good what our problems are, and we know what our challenges are, and we know that we have difficulties. But we, on the other hand, know that there is a lot of answers in rooms like this, in seminars like this, in other seminars regarding these issues. So you can ask yourself, why don't we have more of that knowledge into our project and into our daily work with our buildings? And then I want to show you some of the problems that you're facing with getting new technologies, new solutions into operations. We have to ask ourselves, are these new technologies, are these solutions available in the market? We are a big company, we are a public company, there are regulations regarding procurement that we have to fulfill. And even if we didn't have that, we have to be very keen on how we work on the market, so we are respected for that. The next bullet is, are these solutions ready to meet high demands on reliability in daily operations? This, we need to be satisfied and convinced that this will really work. Real estate is a long-term business. Buildings are really long-term plans. We build buildings to stay for 50, 60, maybe hundreds of years. Will the supplier of new technology remain in the market? This is very important questions for us. On the other hand, we should not be the sluggish one. We should not be the slow one. We really want to help with these ambitions. How can we work with that? How can we work with you? I will give you just a few examples of how we can help new ideas to get through the innovation process and out to market. We have these platforms of innovations or test beds. That's something that is really growing, and I'm a true supporter of that. We are part of one of these test beds that I believe a lot in, together with KTH. It's called the Living Lab, where, as you can see, we have a lot of other companies that's part of that, where we could try out new technologies, new solutions in a way that they could give it could give path to the market. We also have this collaboration that Anna told you about, like the one with SLU, the Restorative Workplace, where we could be more specific in the demands. How could we make it countable, these qualities? And then we have this big EU product. They are a little bit hard to work on. This Ruggedized is a project that we are part of these 6 cities around Europe that is part of a city development project. As you can say, Umeå, that's where we have quite a lot of buildings and a big property where we're part of that project. So with this said, I hope we have given you some senses of how these issues could be looked upon from a real estate perspective and from a property owner. And that was our last slide, actually. So with that, we will thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you. And I hope we will be part of one of your projects in the future. That seems like we have.
I hope to too.
I didn't know that you had so much interest in health and lighting. Is it only you that represent this approach, or is it a shared approach?
No, this is a question that occurs in all our projects. So the discussion is being held everywhere at the moment. where it's, why are we stuck in this calculation system where quality is not a factor?
But no, what I meant is
Yeah.
the approach about the interest in quality, as well as, is it a shared approach of Akademiska Hus?
I want to go back to the vision once more. And I'm very happy for having that vision really put in place, because that puts a pressure on us to think further. If we want people to actually think better, to solve problems better, to think new thoughts better, how can we influence on that as a property owner and as a developer of rooms? We have to think about it on a broad.
So the answer is yes.
Yes. Are there more questions?
Hi, hello.
Hi.
It's because of you mentioned the 0.3 U value, and we've been having quite a discussion in our office in Bau Architects, because it's almost impossible to reach such a level with windows for offices, for hospitals, where most of the architects want to have around 0.6 window to wall ratio, like big windows.
I know.
And getting to such numbers without compromising daylight, for now it's been impossible.
It's an equation that requires a lot of work, and we are succeeding with it in most of our projects, but there is a worry that we're sort of moving towards where it all starts being the same, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, if the artificial light could be taken into consideration here, that could be a huge step forward, because what we're talking about is the quality in the rooms. So, this we're very interested in. But still, yes, we're not budging on our energy requirements. No.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm not sure if you know about Barbara Matosiak in Norway. No, because she have done a lot of research about visual perception and window shape. For example, like vertical and horizontal windows, and people's experience of size and height and depth within a room, and that's qualitative research. And a bit of quantitative as well, but it's a mix.
Very interesting. And of course, horizontal or vertical also makes a huge difference on how much daylight you get in. So that could be an interesting thing to look at.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation and for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, yes.
Thank you.
We wish to
Was an honor.
collaborate more in the future.
Thank you.
Before we have a break for lunch, I would like our